Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. It is Friday night, May 29th, 2015, and I'm Leanne McAdoo. Here is a little taste of what's coming up tonight.
Tonight, how the Patriot Act took down its key supporter. Then, Rex Jones asked, what is the TPP? And live coverage from the Mohammed Cartoon Contest in Phoenix. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
ISIS has vowed to attack it right around 6:15 when they're expected to have prayer time.
Well, we are bringing you a very live, extended version of the InfoWars Nightly News tonight. God willing, we're going to be Skyping in live with Joe Biggs. He's in the air right now, but he should be touching down in Phoenix, Arizona. They're having another rally for free speech there. And, you know, we said, Biggs, do you want to go? And he had already had his flight booked. So God willing, he'll get there in time. So we're going to be shooting this edition of the news live tonight and just going as long as it takes. We're going to have a lot of reports for you. I'll be joined in studio by David Knight and Rob Dew here coming up. We're going to try to take some of your questions live on Twitter. I'll tell you how to do that here coming up soon. But let's get into the news. So this weekend, the Patriot Act is set to expire, and a lot of people are kind of really hoping that they allow this to expire and not just have a pass it to find out what's in it type moment. It's set to expire midnight Sunday, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. Obama is saying there's just a handful of senators standing in the way of the Patriot Act. Now, without action by midnight Sunday, a number of tools that permit law enforcement to pursue and investigate suspected terrorists will expire. Obama, of course, he's pulling out the terrorism card. He says, I don't want us to be in a situation in which for a certain period of time, those authorities go away and suddenly we are dark. And heaven forbid we've got a problem where we could have prevented a terrorist attack or apprehended someone who is engaged in dangerous activity. So there he goes, throwing that out there. Heavens forbid there's some kind of a terrorist attack and there's just a handful of senators in the way. I mean, pointing out the obvious here that the Patriot Act and NSA, they have not stopped a single terrorist attack at this point. They were just scooping up the data of a lot of innocent Americans and people around the world. And possibly one of the reasons why a lot of these senators and people there are standing in the way of the Patriot Act is because what happened to their good buddy Dennis Hastert. Now, we'll talk about him a little bit more coming up later in the news, but Dennis Hastert is the former House Speaker. He was the one who pushed for the Patriot Act initially. He took credit for the passage of the Patriot Act in 2001, as well as getting it reauthorized in 2005. And it is the very provisions in the Patriot Act that led to his indictment. So I think a lot of senators there are kind of saying, well, wow, hey, we already know that they're building a case against all of us to just kind of use whenever they want to bring the hammer down on somebody. But here again, not for a terrorist. Even if the guy is reprehensible and has done some real dirty deeds in his past, they didn't take him down for the dirty deeds. They took him down because he was using his cash money in a way that they did not like. So more on that coming up. But the NSA has already said that if their surveillance program ends, they're going to keep that treasure trove of all your phone data that they've collected. Now, if it expires midnight Sunday, they're already getting things prepared, moving things out of the way. They say they're going to isolate the computer servers where they're stored and block any investigators' access, but they're not going to destroy the database if its legal authority to collect this material expires on schedule this Sunday. So they're just going to hold on to it until some terror event happens, and then everyone is calling for them to reinstate this program, which, once again, if a terror attack does happen, the NSA will not be around to stop it. But Obama has said, other law enforcement has said that they have some other tools in their tool bag that they can use to stop this terrorism, stop terrorist activities. And a school in Orange County is actually going to start monitoring their students on social media using one of these tools. Now, this is a Snap Trends. They've got an annual license for this. Snap Trends is actually a software company based right out of here in Austin. But this software monitors Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And the school said it plans to use this software to conduct routine monitoring for the purposes of prevention or early intervention of potential issues in which students or staff could be at risk to themselves or others. So they're going to proactively prevent and intervene. So they're doing all this to proactively prevent and intervene. Kids do stupid things, and we get it, and they do a lot of these really stupid things on social media. But this is getting these kids prepared to be under perpetual surveillance. And now, not just perpetual surveillance, but engaging in pre-crime, okay? But once again, not for terrorists, it's for average Americans, young people here in school, because the jihadists, check this out, they've got a help desk. So ISIS has created an online help desk to teach their fellow comrades safe practice and help them develop their own secure communications. This is a study based out of the US-based Counterterrorism Center. So ISIS is giving online training, educating their colleagues how to use established techniques for online privacy, such as the use of virtual private networks. They're teaching them how to use tools such as Tor, advising them against using regular popular platforms like Skype, Gmail, Google, and WhatsApp. And then the report says that we found conversations indicating that jihadis are in the early stages of developing secure communications and browsing programs independent of the efforts by Western privacy advocates, and they're also working on developing their own software, the study found. So always right on time, ISIS is doing something that lets everyone know, well, you know what, we're going to need to keep the Patriot Act in effect and need the NSA to monitor all of our online communications, because now ISIS has an online jihadi help desk to train people how to get around the government surveillance. Now, I'm sure everyone out there has watched The Matrix. If you have not, I recommend you go out and do that right away. But a report came out here just about a week or so ago where NASA was talking about a theory that someone had put forth that we are potentially living in this Matrix-like simulation where everything we are doing is sort of a pre-program. And I know a lot of people talk about that with just the way television shows are and then the way our government works a lot of the times. It feels like a lot of things are programmed. But if you think that that is really far-fetched, this is something that the government has been working on for quite some time. They have been working on simulation programs to help create a virtual reality for all of us here in America so that they can understand everything. That is the Mastering the Human Domain that Rob Dew and David Knight broke down in regards to Jade Helm. So here is an extended report on this Matrix-like simulation that we could potentially be living in. Our universe might be a Matrix-like computer game designed by aliens. Now, this was a theory that was first proposed by a British philosopher, Nick Bostrom, just a few years after the Matrix film was released. So, of course, he could have been influenced by the film, who knows. But in his paper, Dr. Bostrom suggests that a race of far-evolved descendants could be behind our digital imprisonment. These futuristic beings, whether they be human or otherwise, could be using virtual reality to stimulate a time in the past or trying to recreate how their remote ancestors lived. So I know that might sound crazy, but NASA actually thinks that he could be right. Now, this is according to Rich Turrill. He is the director of the Center for Evolutionary Computation and Automated Design at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He says that in quantum mechanics, particles do not have a definite state unless they're being observed. One explanation is that we're living within a simulation, seeing what we need to see when we need to see it. And he said he still finds it inspiring that even if we are living in some sort of a simulation or many orders of magnitude down in levels of simulation, somewhere along the way, something escaped the primordial ooze to become us and to result in simulations that made us. And so he thinks that that's cool. Well, I don't want to go into too deep of what that might possibly be. David Icke was actually on the Alex Jones Show and talked a little bit about what might be behind this digital enslavement. But if you think that virtual reality and living in a simulation is just too far off, totally unreal. Well, that is exactly what the United States government has been working on. The NSA's Acquaint program was actually featured on PBS Nova in 2009. Acquaint stands for Advanced Question Answering for Intelligence. And PBS Nova says, with the entire internet and thousands of databases for a brain, the device will be able to respond almost instantaneously to complex questions posed by intelligence analysts. As more and more data is collected through phone calls, credit card receipts, social media, GPS trackers, cell phone geolocation, internet searches, Amazon book purchases, and even E-ZPass toll records, it may one day be possible to know not just where people are and what they are doing, but what and how they think. So this was many years ago. PBS Nova, it's, they're not huge conspiracy theorists. But think back then, 2009, smart homes and smart tracking apps weren't as prevalent as they are today. So all of this technology, we're basically helping to build our own digital imprisonment. But another AI program, Sentient World Simulation. This was proposed in 2006 and has largely flown under the radar. Sentient World Simulation is a matrix-like reality simulating humanity. It is a mirror model of the real world running in parallel on a computer, and it's designed to predict and evaluate future events and courses of action. SWS provides an environment for testing psychological operations and civil affairs activities. It's capable of illustrating the impact of these activities on populations. So in a parallel world, the Pentagon is running an AI program to see how people will react to propaganda and government-inflicted terror. So they can yank a country's water supply or stage a military coup and see how people are going to react. Now, the military, through all this, is seeking to gain full spectrum picture of the everyday reality of people's lives and, of course, the adversaries of the military. So that's why they're tracking protesters and vegan potlucks and the Occupy protests and things like that, because they're wanting to see not only who are terrorists, but people who are actively trying to maybe overthrow the world order. So with this upcoming Jade Helm, is this just a drill? Will soldiers be in place to test these simulation capabilities? Are they wargaming some potential humanitarian emergency scenarios, responding to civil unrest? We did report last year how the U.S. Department of Defense put out a FedBizOp request for an even more game-changing technology to predict societal unrest. They were looking to find some technology that would help them to track all human activities that can be measured. David Knight and Rob Dew gave a really in-depth presentation of a whole nother level of geospatial simulation and how this is tying into Jade Helm.
They are mapping humans onto the geological map, and they're looking at you at the individual level, every aspect of you. This is where the surveillance pays off for them. This is the GeoInt, the human domain. And when they say mastering the human domain, it's a very specific term of art from the military.
And this has been an evolution. It started off as we're going to get real detailed maps of everything using satellite imagery. Well, now they have these detailed maps. Now they know who lives at what address. And now they're tying that in with your Facebook account, with your Twitter account,
Yes.
with your YouTube videos. So they're measuring your political beliefs, and they can go up and down and go, well, he's kind of for us. This guy's against us. This guy's pulling the party line. This guy isn't. We need to put him on a watch list. And they're using all this for future operations.
They're building an infrastructure of tyranny.
Right.
There's a legal infrastructure, things like the NDAA. There is a technical infrastructure, things like the capabilities to do dragnet surveillance. And then, of course, there's going to be a military and a law enforcement infrastructure. Those are merging. That's what you have to understand when they talk about the human domain, when they talk about geointelligence, mapping this all together. They're multi-int, taking all of this, multiple intelligence sources, focusing it down to the micro level. They're very concerned, they say in these presentations, they're very concerned about one guy with a computer and a video camera because he can have worldwide impact. That's why they're looking at you as an individual.
Exactly. And now I want to go to this first clip. This is Lieutenant Colonel Al